Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, 6-Path Weeb. Today, we're diving into an exciting fanfic scenario. What if Naruko was trained by Kashin Koji? Disclaimer, the content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. So, let's get started. Thud, thud, thud. Kaka-sensei can't help me, then no one can, mumbled a short spiky blonde girl wearing an orange and blue tracksuit, as she threw punches toward a wooden stump, keeping her punches at even speeds. Thud, thud, thud. All because Sasuke is an Uchiha and has a bloodline. Who cares? He's just another orphan with fancy eyes. Screamed the blonde-haired girl as she punched a piece of wood, cracking it before slowly sliding down to the grassy ground. Why? Why is it only me who has nobody? Why is it always Naruko Uzumaki who gets the short stick? Why only me? She cried softly, wiping tears from her cheeks as she huddled against the tree. Sniff. Maybe if I win the Chunin exams. Kakashi-sensei will train me, Naruko whispered to herself, rekindling a spark of determination. Jumping to her feet, she began stretching, readying herself. Yeah. That's it. Maybe if I win the Chunin exams, Kakashi-sensei will train me more than Sasuke. Naruko thought, positioning herself to run. Gurgle. Naruko glanced at her stomach, which seemed to have a mind of its own. Ah, I'm hungry but I can't stop training. She groaned. She weighed her options, sprinting to Ichiraku's for a quick ramen bowl and returning, or ignoring her hunger and continuing training. After all, she had a month to train starting tomorrow. If only she could be in two places at once. A sudden spark of inspiration lit up over Naruko's head. Yes. Cage Bunshine. How could I forget that, she shouted, slamming her fists together as she formed the seals to summon her favorite technique. Poof. The small clearing filled with hundreds of Narukos. She looked around and sighed. Ever since the Forest of Death adventure and her stomach troubles, her chakra control hadn't been perfect. Okay, everyone but one clone, dispel, she said, rubbing her forehead. Poof. Only one clone remained, standing at attention like a disciplined Onbu member. Sir, yes sir, said the clone. Naruko grinned. Clone Naruko. This is an important mission. You must get me 10 miso ramens, pronto. Failure will result in my stomach exploding, and we'll never get to taste ramen again. She pointed at the clone, who looked terrified. Sir. Yes, sir. Screamed the clone, dashing away and leaving Naruko alone in the clearing. Naruko scratched her head, wondering how the clone would pay for the ramen. Oh well, she would see soon enough. She turned back to her training ground, a favorite spot she had discovered before the graduation exam. It was a vast clearing surrounded by trees, with a sparkling waterfall at the edge. Naruko counted down in her mind, 3, 2, 1. Go! And sprinted as fast as she could. She pushed her muscles harder and harder, making herself just under a rookie Chunin speed. Come on Naruko. You can go faster. You can do better. She encouraged herself. Her determination made her run slightly faster. Suddenly, she tripped and clutched her head. Ouch! What was that? She muttered, her voice trailing as memories of her clone's chaotic ramen run flashed before her eyes. She realized she hadn't actually tripped, her clone had. I thought Cage Bunshine was only a physical clone. I need to read the rest of the technique information, Naruko murmured. She had only studied the creation of clones, not their capabilities. I'll just ask Gigi now, she sighed, leaving the clearing and heading toward the Hokage Tower. 3 hours later, Naruko arrived, sweaty and tired. She looked up at the tower and spotted Gigi. But before she could call him, he disappeared. Well, looks like it's time for Operation FS, she muttered. Operation Forbidden Scroll it is. Using a construction setup she had discovered before, Naruko climbed to a ledge, leapt, and rolled safely onto the next platform. Carefully, she peeked through a window, avoiding the chatter of shinobi inside, and made her way to the Hokage's office. With a key she had copied perfectly from Gigi's, she unlocked a drawer in the massive bookcase and discovered the Forbidden Scroll. Alongside it were 3 scrolls with her name. Surprised but excited, she tucked them safely into her jacket. Reading the Forbidden Scroll, Naruko learned that her Cage Bunshine could be used for much more than physical training. It could be a tool for learning, spying, and studying. Every memory of her clones would return to her when they were dispelled. Naruko's eyes shone with excitement. She could learn techniques faster than anyone else. She imagined surpassing even Sasuke in skill. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to be the greatest Hokage ever, she shouted, jumping to her feet. In her excitement, she scratched the back of her hand, drawing blood. To her surprise, the blood began to vanish, leaving the portraits of the Hokage spotless, except for Gigi's. Poof. Thud. 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 Naruko's journey to become the best ninja and the greatest Hokage had only just begun. Naruko looked at the 3 scrolls that had popped out from the now clean portraits. She stared at them curiously, wondering why they were there. Looking closer, she saw that each scroll was meant for someone with a particular bloodline, but how had she gotten them? She wasn't from the Senju clan or the Namikaze family. So, how had she unlocked the secret portraits? Leaning down, Naruko quickly tucked the 3 scrolls into her jacket. She glanced through the steps recorded in each, her eyes widening with excitement. The first scroll described the Rasengan. The instructions seemed simple at first glance, but she knew that if it was in the Forbidden Scroll section, mastering it would be anything but easy. The second was the Hiraishin no Jutsu. The scroll explained that it required advanced knowledge of Fuinjutsu, and even then, recreating it would take great skill. The third scroll was called Edo Tensei. It allowed the summoning of past shinobi for a short time, as long as the user had some of their blood and a body for them to inhabit. Other scrolls mentioned grand techniques, like an infinite darkness genjutsu, but she knew her chakra control wasn't strong enough for that yet. Satisfied with her finds, Naruko pulled out a small notebook she always carried for prank ideas. Flipping through its nearly full pages, she carefully wrote down the steps for Rasengan, Hiraishin, and Edo Tensei. Almost there. Just need to put these back and get out safely, she whispered to herself. Her heartbeat raced as she carefully returned the forbidden scroll to its place and locked the secret cupboard. Standing up, Naruko wiped the dust off her grandfather's portrait and used her key to open the door slowly. She slipped out quietly, closing the door behind her. Moving through the building with cat-like precision, she approached an open window. Climbing through, she stepped across the platform and jumped onto a ledge, then slid down a ramp with a grin. She gripped her heart as relief washed over her. Thank the kami that Grandpa took the Anbu with him, or I'd have been caught instantly, she muttered, heading toward the steps leading back to Konoha. An hour later, Naruko muttered, these steps take forever. She walked with her hands behind her head, thinking about sleeping at her secret training ground instead of her apartment. It was a simple little shelter she'd made for herself, where she could train day and night without interruptions. Deciding it was the better option, she headed to her apartment to leave a note for her grandfather. Naruko's apartment. She unlocked the door and switched on the light, walking through her cozy little home. In her room, she opened her travel bag, stuffing in some jumpsuits and a few preserved ramen packs. Under her bed, she lifted a loose floorboard to reveal a hidden compartment filled with supplies, blood pills, chakra pills, and food pills. Each one served a purpose. Blood pills helped in emergencies, chakra pills replenished energy but came with fatigue, and food pills filled her stomach for a few hours. Next to the pills was her hidden money box, filled with years of savings, and a fox-shaped mask she had picked as a child because it simply felt right. Holding it up to her face in the mirror, she felt a strange sense of pride. Carefully, she placed the mask in her travel bag along with a scroll containing medical supplies she had learned to use patching up animals and humans alike. Finished packing, Naruko turned off the lights, locked the door, and headed to her secret training ground. Passing other ninja along the way, she pretended she was heading to regular training grounds, then sprinted as fast as she could toward her hidden place. After an hour, she arrived, tired but content. I might as well sleep now, she said, gazing at the stars beginning to twinkle above. 8 hours later, Naruko groaned as she fell out of her handmade hammock hidden behind a waterfall. Why did I wake up so early? She muttered, shuffling her jacket and feeling the scrolls still tucked safely inside. Well, now's a good time to read them, she thought, walking around the ice-cold waterfall. She laid out all the scrolls in 2 piles, the ones from the Hokage portraits on her left, and the forbidden scrolls on her right. Scratching her head, she wondered which to open first. The Hokage scrolls were her heroes, after all. Grabbing the 3 Hokage scrolls, she tried to open them, but they didn't budge. What? But these fell from the floor when my blood. Oh right. Naruko slapped her forehead, remembering she needed her blood to unlock them. Carefully, she formed the hand signs for a clone. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A sparkling copy of herself appeared beside her, ready to help her unlock the secrets of the scrolls. After the shout, little puffs of smoke appeared all around. Naruko looked at her small army of 200 clones with a determined nod. Okay, everyone. Tree walking training time. Kaka-sensei said my chakra control is the worst, so we need to practice that first. She called out, watching as her clones nodded eagerly before scattering toward the nearest trees. Naruko ran to a separate tree and began balancing carefully on its trunk, feeling the leaves sway beneath her. Her eyes then shifted back to the scrolls lying on the ground, and her heart thumped loudly in her chest. Slowly, she touched the scrolls with a little bit of her chakra, and a tiny drop of her blood appeared as she pressed her thumb to the parchment. Carefully, she spread it across the scrolls before the little wound healed itself. Suddenly, 3 puffs of smoke erupted at once, and Naruko's eyes went wide. Standing before her were 3 figures she could hardly believe, the legendary Hokage. The first Hokage. Hashirama Senju. The second Hokage. Tobirama Senju, Hashirama's brother. And finally, her personal favorite. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. 3 living legends were now standing right in front of Naruko. She froze for a moment before a thought popped into her head. Ahhh. Ghosts. She screamed, diving headfirst into the lake. Somehow, this made the fourth Hokage smile, a tiny bead of sweat forming on his brow. The 3 Hokage exchanged looks and then glanced at the scrolls on the ground. Minato's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't expected Naruko to summon not only him but also the first and second Hokage. That could only mean Naruko was related to them. While Minato thought quietly, Tobirama frowned at the little figure hiding in the water. Using a gentle water whip, he lifted Naruko out of the lake. Suspended in the air, she flailed for a moment, sure they were all ghosts, even though they didn't look transparent at all. Hashirama, who had been quietly observing, waved at her with a kind smile. Hello there. I see you've summoned me. And you must be? Naruko blinked, impressed by his warmth, but before she could answer, Minato introduced himself with a flourish. I'm Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, he said, striking a heroic pose. Naruko's eyes sparkled. Who cared about ghosts when the pose was that cool? Hashirama tilted his head. If you are the fourth Hokage and no longer among the living, then who is the fifth? Tobirama raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Minato scratched his head, unsure. Luckily, Naruko jumped in. Gigi's the Hokage now, she said proudly, dangling upside down in the air. Gigi? Hashirama asked, confused. Naruko explained quickly, oh. That's the third Hokage. Even though he's an older man, he's still really cool. Naruko rubbed her head, feeling a little dizzy from hanging upside down. Can you let me down now? She asked politely. Tobirama thought for a moment before lowering her gently, and she tumbled softly onto the grass. Ow. Okay, that wasn't fun, she muttered, giving her little verbal tick accidentally. Minato chuckled at the sound, while Tobirama exchanged a knowing look with Hashirama. You're from our side of the family, Tobirama said, smiling, and the 3 Hokage laughed together. Naruko, feeling a little shy, finally asked, How are you all alive? Hashirama stepped forward. You summoned us from the scrolls. That means you're related to us, either through your mother or father. These scrolls were made for our family to call upon in times of need. But why did you summon us? Naruko grinned sheepishly. I was curious. I wanted to see what the Cage Bunshine really does. Tobirama's eyes widened, and the other Hokage stepped closer, looking a little concerned. Curiosity is fine, Hashirama said kindly, but chakra can be tricky. You must be careful. Naruko looked at her clones, which were scattered around her in perfect formation. What? Oh. I thought practicing with them would help me get better. The Hokage shared a glance, impressed. Naruko's control was better than she realized. The young ninja felt a warm glow of confidence. Even after all the puffs of smoke and tricky exercises, she didn't feel tired, she felt stronger, ready for anything. Hashirama grinned. If she can handle this with such focus, she may one day become one of the greatest shinobi ever. Minato nodded proudly. My daughter is truly remarkable. Tobirama smiled. Well then, training with you for the next month will certainly be interesting. Naruko took a deep breath, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She was about to begin an adventure she would never forget. Faster, Naruko, shouted Minato as he tossed his Hiraishin kunai toward her. Naruko was running on sheer determination, her small legs moving as fast as they could. It had been 10 days since her training had begun, and even without her clones helping her, the Kijis were amazed at how quickly she was learning. When the Kijis first started training Naruko, they discovered something surprising: she didn't know how to take care of herself very well. They learned this the hard way when they sent her out to gather her own food. By then, Naruko had already learned that most of what the Kijis could do, she could imitate perfectly. Half an hour later, they finally found her, not quietly picking berries or catching fish, as one might expect, but in a clearing several miles away, trying to make friends with 3 curious bears. How she had gotten so far, nobody could say. When Tobirama asked who had taught her so much already, Naruko hesitated. She murmured answers softly, and the Kijis' reactions varied. Hashirama felt a quiet sympathy for the child, Tobirama felt intrigued, and Minato fell to his knees, hugging Naruko tightly, tears brimming in his eyes. "Why are you crying?" Naruko asked, tilting her head. Minato explained gently, "Because I'm your father, and your mother. She should have been here to take care of you." That night, Naruko wept softly under the stars, comforted by the presence of the 3 Kijis. Even though she might never meet her mother, at least she had found her father. On the second day of training, Tobirama challenged Naruko to summon as many clones as she could. To her surprise, she managed to summon 50 Kagebushin using the same amount of chakra she had used the day before. Her excitement bubbled over. She now had a new skill to add to her growing abilities. Flashback, 9 days ago. "Why can't I summon more clones?" Naruko shouted in frustration. "I controlled my chakra perfectly yesterday for 15 whole minutes. How come I can't summon 200 clones like before?" Tobirama sat calmly nearby, studying her chakra. Slowly, he realized something strange: her chakra was scrambled at its core. He called Hashirama and Minato over. Naruko, exhausted, sat down. Tobirama carefully lifted her shirt to reveal her stomach. Hashirama scratched his head. He had studied seals before, but this one was new to him. Tobirama's eyes widened. The seal was clever, it disrupted chakra flow and, if she were a Jinchuriki, would block her from accessing special powers. But Minato, Naruko's father, immediately recognized it. Gently, he placed his hand on her seal and slowly untwisted it, releasing both the hidden seal and another secret one that had blocked her growth. Naruko felt her chakra return to normal. She glanced at a puddle nearby and gasped, her whisker-like marks had vanished. She also noticed, in her mind, a curious map connecting the Kijis. Before she could fully understand it, they held out a blank piece of paper to her. "This is chakra paper," Hashirama explained. "Trees fed with chakra for years create this paper. It can show what elements you can use. Just send a little chakra into it." Naruko nodded eagerly. She touched the paper, sending her chakra through it. The paper split into 4 pieces. One shimmered with water, another hardened into dirt, the third crackled with lightning, and the fourth spun in the air like the wind. The water and earth pieces slipped from her fingers and merged into a tiny, vibrant plant. Hashirama leapt with joy. Finally, he had a student to share his teachings with, but only for the next 30 days. Naruko looked at the plant with wide eyes. "I guess this is just the beginning," she whispered. And so began Naruko's adventure, full of discovery, friendship, and the magic of learning her own strengths, one day at a time. Present. "Naruko, you can do better," called Minato as he zipped around the clearing, tossing more kunai toward Naruko while she gracefully dodged small water and wood dragons swirling in the air. Naruko's bright blue eyes sparkled with mischief as she watched her teacher's attacks fly past her. She ducked, rolled, and leapt, all while thinking about how much these training sessions had helped her grow. She remembered Hashirama, Minato, and Tobirama guiding her clones in elemental control, 50 clones per group, each learning to master fire, wind, water, earth, and lightning. She had loved Hashirama's gentle medical training, the kind that healed her spirit as much as her body. Tobirama's chakra control exercises were exhausting, climbing waterfalls while carrying her teachers on her back, but she had learned patience and persistence. Then came her hand-to-hand combat lessons, where her natural energy and creativity shone. Finally, Minato and Tobirama introduced her to Fuinjutsu, and even a peek at space-time ninjutsu, which quickly became her favorite. Thanks to all this, Naruko had grown from a solid beginner to a rising star in the shinobi world. She was ready for new challenges, and a playful grin spread across her face as she imagined showing Neji just how much she had improved. Chunin Exam Final Stadium. The stadium buzzed with excitement. The Chunin exams, held every 6 months, were a chance for young ninjas to show their skills and for the village leaders to spot future heroes. The third Hokage, Hiruzen sighed. It had been a whole month since he last saw Naruko. He had hoped Jiraiya could train her for the exams, but the famous ninja had been busy, and now the Hokage worried that Naruko might miss her chance. Looking over the contestants, Hiruzen noticed only 6 of the young ninjas were present. The 3 missing were Naruko, Sasuke, and Dosu from the Sound Village. If Sasuke arrived late, there might be leniency, but if Naruko was late, even a second could disqualify her. Hiruzen shook his head and went to the balcony, greeting the crowd. The Chunin exams will now begin, he announced, and the audience erupted in cheers. Soon, Genma, the protector of the exams, stepped forward. He had shoulder-length brown hair, brown eyes, and a senbon in his mouth. His uniform was the standard Jonin outfit, neat and ready for the day. All Genin except for Naruko Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga, go to the waiting area, Genma instructed. Most of the young ninjas filed away, leaving Neji behind. Neji, with his long black hair tied in a loose ponytail, crossed his arms and smirked. The cheeky blonde, now Naruko, was probably running late again, he thought. Genma scanned the arena and couldn't spot Naruko. Just as he opened his mouth to declare Neji the winner by default, a kunai clinked onto the stone floor in front of him. He looked up, and froze. On top of the cage box, a lone figure crouched silently, wearing a fox-shaped mask. The shadowy figure dropped lightly to the arena floor, landing almost without a sound. Then, with a flick, the mask was removed, revealing Naruko's bright, determined face and her golden hair catching the sunlight. "Are you Naruko Uzumaki?" Genma asked, half in surprise and half in amusement. "What gave me away?" she said, securing her mask to her belt with a confident grin. Genma smiled and stepped back to the center of the arena, raising his hand to signal the start. Both Naruko and Neji squared off, ready for the first match of the Chunin exams. The crowd held its breath. The adventure of the exams, and Naruko's bright journey, was just beginning. Both contestants stood still, the gentle wind lifting their hair as the arena filled with the whispers of excitement. Naruko faced Neji, her golden hair catching the sunlight, her arms folded calmly across her chest. She didn't move, not even an inch, and this puzzled Neji. "You think changing your stance will help, loser?" Neji sneered. "Fate has already chosen me to win. Who would support a nobody like you?" Naruko blinked, silent at first, letting his words hang in the air. Then, softly, she said, "At least I'm not a slave." The words traveled farther than she expected. Neji's eyes widened, and he clenched his fists, his face twisting in disbelief. "What did you say?" he stammered, his confidence shaken. Naruko stepped closer, looking him directly in the eyes. Her voice was calm but firm. "At least I'm not a slave." Neji's legs tensed. He charged, but stumbled, falling to his knees, clutching his stomach as if a sudden weakness had struck him. Naruko approached, gently tapping his shoulders, guiding him to stand upright again. She didn't need to hit him to win, her calm and courage were enough. Neji's head spun, confused and frustrated. He tried to move, but Naruko seemed to anticipate every action, subtly guiding him without harm. She only smiled at him, her eyes warm. How did you do that?" Neji whispered as medics rushed over to help him. Naruko simply gave a small nod and walked back toward the Genin stand, leaving Neji puzzled, but also feeling a little lighter, strangely less burdened by his anger. The crowd erupted in surprise. Ayame jumped from her seat, cheering loudly. "Yes. Naruko won. We knew you could do it," she exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. Naruko waved to her friends with a bright grin, grateful for their support, and returned to her spot among the other participants. The third Hokage shook his head in amazement. She defeated the Hyuga prodigy. In 30 seconds. Without even moving until the end. How? The Kazekage leaned forward, curious. What did the blonde child do? "I do not know," the Hokage admitted, eyes still on Neji being carried to the medical area. Among the other Genin, Naruko's friends stared in awe. She had proven that courage, calm, and cleverness could win where raw strength could not. She leaned on the balcony, smiling at everyone she knew, and greeted them warmly. "Hey everyone, how's it going?" she called out, her voice gentle and confident. The crowd couldn't help but feel inspired. Here was a girl who didn't need loud words or flashy moves, she simply stayed true to herself. The next matches were announced, and some participants quickly surrendered, realizing that force wasn't everything. Naruko's quiet bravery had shown a new way to succeed, with cleverness, heart, and respect. Finally, Naruko faced Gaara of the sand. The red-haired ninja glared at her, sending sand swirling around. Naruko studied him carefully, noticing the pattern of his movements. She unsealed 2 kunai, carefully inscribed with glowing seals. As Gaara's sand formed around her, Naruko leapt and moved gracefully, using her kunai to create gentle barriers that guided the sand away without causing harm. She didn't strike to hurt, she struck to redirect. Gaara tried to resist, but Naruko's calm determination and clever use of her tools overwhelmed him. She landed lightly, performing hand signs with precision. Blue barriers shimmered around her, safe and protective, holding Gaara in place gently until the fight could end. The crowd held their breath, amazed at her skill and heart. Naruko smiled, not with pride, but with joy in showing that courage, kindness, and cleverness were stronger than anger or cruelty. The arena cheered, not just for her victory, but for the way she had shown that true strength comes from the heart. Sealing, 5 elemental seal. Naruko screamed as she dashed forward, her bright orange scarf trailing behind her like a streak of sunlight. She had been practicing her barrier spell all week, and she knew exactly when to let it fade so she could touch the shimmering seal hovering in front of her. Just a meter away, her protective barrier disappeared in a flash, leaving her fingers inches from the glowing magical circle. With a burst of determination, Naruko leapt higher and pushed her hands toward the seal. The seal pulsed and shimmered, but instead of breaking, it released a soft, sparkling wave of light that pushed her back just a little. Naruko laughed, landing gracefully on the arena floor, her golden hair bouncing in the sunlight. Across from her, Gaara, a tall figure draped in swirling sand-colored robes, gasped in surprise. Naruko had managed to reach so close to the seal that it sent tiny bursts of color into the air, painting the arena with sparkles. Not missing a beat, she twirled and leapt again, sending her own wave of gentle energy toward Gaara. Boom! The arena wall glowed with rainbow-colored lights, echoing the playful energy of the contest. Everyone clapped and cheered as the lights danced across the sand and stone, creating patterns like falling stars. Genma, the wise judge of the magical games, floated over and gently helped Gaara steady himself. He pressed 2 fingers to Gaara's wrist, checking for energy levels rather than anything harmful. "He's perfectly fine," Genma announced with a smile. Just dazzled by Naruko's spell work. "The winner of this round is Naruko Uzumaki," Genma declared, his voice carrying over the sparkling arena. Just then, a loud alarm sounded from the cage booth. Confetti cannons exploded, and a wave of sleepy magic filled the crowd. Everyone giggled and yawned as they tried to stay awake while the sand shinobi playfully chased magical orbs around the arena. Throughout the commotion, Naruko's voice rang clear and bright, cutting through the sleepy haze. "We're under attack." By giggles and glitter. With a joyful leap, Naruko dashed toward the floating orbs, ready to turn the playful chaos into a magical show for everyone watching. Her friends joined her, laughing as they twirled and bounced across the arena, spreading light and happiness wherever they went. Naruko watched as ninja sprang into action without hesitation, rushing to protect the village from the mysterious Sunagakur and Sound Ninja who had appeared during the invasion. She saw Tamari and her brother Kankuro carefully escorting Gaara toward the village's forest for safety. Boom! Looking up, Naruko's eyes widened as a shimmering, purplish barrier suddenly rose into the sky. She leapt from wall to wall, bouncing gracefully as she approached the barrier. It was a 4-flame formation. And she immediately recognized the shinobi holding it. The first was a rather stout ninja with bright orange eyes and a mohawk of 3 spiky orange tufts. He wore a sleeveless tunic with the Sound 4 symbol on the hem, black arm warmers, black 3/4 pants, sandals with leg warmers, and a purple rope belt around his waist. A necklace of metal and circular pieces completed his ensemble. The next was a girl with long, wild red hair. She wore a black hat with bandaged sides, a tan tunic similar to the others, black shorts, and black sandals. She looked both fierce and confident. Then came a man with 6 arms. His light brown skin glowed in the sunlight, and his black, shaggy hair framed his calm, dark eyes. He wore a black sleeveless top and shorts with a tunic marked by a circle, a purple rope belt around his waist, and standard shinobi sandals. Lastly, there was a man with 2 heads, though one seemed to be sleeping. His straight, dark gray hair covered one eye, and green-tinted lips and dark markings around his eyes gave him an unusual, mysterious look. He wore brown tunics, black wristbands, purple ropes, and a giant scroll strapped to his back. Naruko's gaze shifted to the battle inside the barrier, and her heart skipped a beat. There was her Jiji, standing bravely against Hashirama, Tobirama, and even Orochimaru. She knew she had to act. She couldn't let her Jiji face them alone. Ignoring the red-haired girl calling her dumb and an idiot, Naruko formed her hands into seals. Sealing, temporal distortion. As her glowing yellow hand touched the barrier, it parted just enough for her to slip through, along with someone slightly taller. She dashed inside, ignoring the shocked gasps of the surrounding ninja. Inside, the battle raged. Naruko saw Hashirama preparing a powerful Makuten attack. Her body thrummed with energy as she focused, ready to defend. Pumping chakra into her arms, she dashed forward. A bright blue flame ignited in her hand. Sealing, restriction of the Shinigami. With precision, she thrust her hand toward Hashirama's armor. The attack sent shards of magical energy scattering into the air. Hashirama's body fell to the ground, but he smiled warmly at her bravery before collapsing. Naruko landed carefully on a branch created by Hashirama's secret nativity of a world of trees technique. The branch swayed gently under her weight, and she noticed Tobirama standing nearby. With a determined nod, she summoned 10 Kagebunshin clones. Help Gigi. Orochimaru is sneaky, so be careful. She instructed her clones. They dashed off without hesitation. Turning back to Tobirama, she felt his calm, watchful gaze. Even though she couldn't see his full power, she could sense his pride. With a burst of speed, Naruko moved toward her Gigi, dodging attacks and creating clever traps using the trees around her. Her heart pounded, but she stayed focused. She couldn't let anyone harm the people she cared about. Meanwhile, Orochimaru and Hiruzen's battle continued. Hiruzen dodged snake attacks and spun his staff gracefully, while Orochimaru smirked, testing every move. Suddenly, a Naruto clone intervened, giving Hiruzen just enough space to counter. Naruko stepped forward, her green jacket slightly torn, but her spirit bright. "Sorry, Orochimaru. I won't let you harm the Hokage," she said firmly. She gathered chakra into her coils, her determination lighting up her eyes. "As a shinobi of Konoha, it's my duty to protect the Great Will of Fire. I learned that from my sensei, and I'll never let their teachings fade." With a flash of speed and a swirl of energy, she activated her next technique. Flash Step. Naruko vanished in a brilliant streak of light, ready to protect her Gigi, her senseis, and her village with all her heart. Shouted Naruko as she dashed across the training field, her feet barely touching the ground. Suddenly, a surprising force sent the mischievous trickster, Orochimaru, tumbling across the purple flames formation, bouncing harmlessly off the soft magical barriers. "Ah!" Orochimaru exclaimed, more in surprise than pain, as he landed on a cushiony barrier that sparkled and shimmered. He shook his arm, realizing it was only slightly singed by the harmless magical sparks. Naruko quickly looked around to see her sensei, Hiruzen, watching with a concerned smile. He was ready to step in but trusted Naruko to handle this tricky situation. "Hiruzen-sensei, I'm fine," Naruko said, brushing imaginary dust off her clothes. She laughed lightly as she gathered her energy, drawing magical chakra from the forest trees nearby. Her special technique, a swift flash step, had never been tested like this before, and the uneven ground had made her zigzag more than planned, but she was learning, and learning fast. "Do you have a chakra berry, Gigi?" Naruko asked, noticing her wise little mentor. Gigi the tiny fox dropped a glowing berry onto a stone tile. Naruko nodded, grateful, and gobbled it down. Instantly, her energy bubbled back up like a sparkling fountain. Standing tall, she focused her chakra, allowing her minor scratches to glow with gentle healing magic. The fox spirits and forest magic around her whispered encouragement, and soon she felt ready for the next challenge. Then Naruko noticed something odd. Orochimaru's magical staff, normally in his hand, was missing. She squinted just in time to see it soaring toward Gigi. With a leap full of courage, Naruko swooped in and gently intercepted the staff, her quick thinking saving her little friend. Hiruzen-sensei gasped, impressed by Naruko's bravery and quick reflexes. He watched as she landed, glowing slightly from her own chakra. Orochimaru pouted in frustration. "She's too clever," he muttered, looking at Naruko with surprise. Naruko took a deep breath and focused. With a series of intricate hand signs, she summoned the magical spirit guardian, a gentle, towering being with soft white robes, flowing hair, and a kind expression. Its eyes, deep and wise, fixed on Orochimaru. "Spirit guardian," Naruko said, "please help me teach Orochimaru that trickery can be turned into friendship." The spirit guardian reached out with glowing hands, not to harm, but to gently lift Orochimaru into the air. Orochimaru wriggled and squeaked, then realized he couldn't escape, but instead of fear, he felt something new, a tingling warmth. Naruko's chakra flowed with love and kindness. She guided the guardian's hands, and tiny sparkling seals appeared, not painful, just magical symbols that shimmered with lessons of empathy, honesty, and teamwork.
I don't want to be mean anymore, Orochimaru whispered, eyes wide.
I just wanted attention. Naruko smiled brightly, offering him a hand. You don't need tricks to be noticed, Orochimaru. You can use your magic to help, just like we do. The spirit guardian slowly lowered Orochimaru to the ground, leaving a soft, glowing seal on his staff. From now on, it would remind him to use his magic for fun and kindness rather than mischief. Hiruzen-sensei clapped gently. Well done, Naruko. You used your courage, your magic, and your heart to change someone for the better. Naruko laughed and twirled, feeling the wind in her hair. Even Orochimaru, still a bit bewildered, couldn't help but smile. And in that sparkling moment, everyone learned that even the trickiest hearts could shine bright when met with patience, courage, and a little bit of magic. Orochimaru was about to capture Naruko when suddenly, he felt a bright surge of energy just a few feet away. Turning around, he was surprised by what he saw. There stood her sensei, Hiruzen, with a calm, blank expression, though soft brown streaks now ran across his forehead and down the center of his nose, like gentle brushstrokes of autumn sunlight. Hiruzen's arms glowed faintly with a mysterious purple shimmer, as if the air around them hummed with quiet power. Orochimaru blinked in surprise as Hiruzen slowly turned to face him. The shinobi holding the magical barrier around the area panicked and rushed to help, but Hiruzen didn't move in anger. Instead, he focused on Naruko, who lay quietly on the ground, exhausted but still breathing. Hiruzen's face softened, though a mix of worry and sadness flickered across it. I trusted you, Orochimaru. I believed you could be better, and maybe I let my hopes cloud my judgment, he whispered. But now, my focus must be on helping my student. With a calm gesture, Hiruzen released a soft wave of energy that gently dissolved the barrier. Orochimaru and his team disappeared in a swirl of shimmering light, leaving the field quiet. The Anbu, trained protectors of the village, rushed to Naruko's side. One brave Anbu gently placed a hand on her chest. Then, a tiny heartbeat, a soft, steady rhythm, pulsed under her fingers. She was alive. Relief spread across their faces like sunlight breaking through clouds. Quickly, said Tiger, the Anbu leader. We need to take Naruko to the hospital wing. She's very tired and weak, but she'll recover with care. Two of the Anbu carefully lifted Naruko and carried her toward the village's medical center. She stirred slightly, murmuring softly as if dreaming of a vast, peaceful field full of fluttering butterflies and golden sunlight. Meanwhile, in the training arena, Kakashi looked around. Huh? Everyone's gone? He murmured, blinking in surprise. Then he spotted Sasuke with his usual calm expression. Kakashi grinned, giving a thumbs up. Well, Sasuke, looks like we have more time to train, he said cheerfully. With a gentle flick of movement, they both disappeared in a swirl of soft wind, heading to their secret training ground, ready to grow stronger together. And somewhere far away, Naruko began to stir in her hospital bed, her eyelids fluttering open to a world full of friends, laughter, and new adventures waiting just for her. Hospital. Where am I? Thought Naruko as she slowly opened her eyes and instinctively covered them from the bright light above. Letting her eyes adjust, she realized she was back in the general hospital. Again. The sterile smell and quiet hum of machines were familiar. Trying to stand, Naruko felt a sharp twinge in her shoulder and a dull ache across her chest. Looking down, she saw the thick wrappings around her right shoulder, chest, and stomach. Memories flashed. She had been helping her Gigi in battle, had taken a serious hit, and had passed out. But something felt different. With careful effort, Naruko pushed herself to her feet. Her wrist ached, but she reached for the hospital room door and slowly opened it. Peeking out, she glanced both ways, as if sneaking out of the hospital. When she was younger, trying something like this usually meant being whisked back by ninja under Hokage's orders. The hallway stretched before her, quiet but scattered with signs of Konoha's recent struggles. She paused by a window, watching the sunlight glint off partially damaged rooftops and gates. Relying on the wall for support, Naruko continued forward, her senses alert. She could feel chakra all around the village, the strongest signature pulling her forward. Suddenly, a figure appeared, a ninja with long purple hair and a sleek, cat-like mask. She was clearly an Anbu, moving with effortless grace. Her hand rested on Naruko's shoulder, and before she could react, Naruko felt a sudden rush of speed and a blur of leaves. Moments later, she was standing inside the Hokage's office. Hokage office. A puff of smoke cleared, revealing Naruko standing beside the masked Anbu. Hiruzen looked at her hospital gown and chuckled softly. Ah! What the? Naruko gasped, realizing she was still in a hospital gown. The Anbu's shoulders moved in a subtle laugh, and Hiruzen nodded toward her. She melted into the shadows of the office, leaving only a quiet presence. Hiruzen approached Naruko, his eyes warm, and wrapped her in a brief hug. She returned it, feeling a wave of relief and pride. When they separated, Hiruzen snapped his fingers. A new set of clothes appeared beside her, her previous outfit from the Chunin exams, along with her older jumpsuits. 4 Anbu silently emerged from the corners at his nod, then melted back into the shadows. Your choice, Hiruzen said, gesturing toward the clothes before leaving the office. Naruko understood immediately. She could either return to being a prank-loving ninja like before or step fully into her potential. It wasn't a hard choice. She chose the Chunin exams outfit carefully folded on the desk. Quickly, she donned the black long-sleeved shirt and baggy pants. The jacket and fox mask were missing, but she could wait for those later. Outside, her Gigi beamed at her, and the 4 Anbu nodded in approval. Where's my jacket and fox mask? Naruko asked, her voice steady. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow but nodded toward one of the Anbu, who quickly disappeared to fetch them. Would you like to come with me to the council room? Hiruzen asked, noticing her easier steps. She nodded, feeling stronger with each step. So, how was training with the 3-cage? He asked casually. Naruko widened her eyes and looked at him. Her Gigi wasn't angry, despite her bold adventures. I saw parts of your training through the crystal ball, excellent work, Hiruzen said with a small smile. Perhaps one day, you could even become Hokage. Naruko smiled softly, shrugging off the lingering pain in her shoulders. So, I also borrowed my parents' scrolls and peeked at the forbidden scroll? She said casually, looking forward. Hiruzen froze, eyes wide. Only moments ago, he thought she had merely enlisted the help of the cage. Now she had accomplished even more. Council room. Naruko and Hiruzen entered, walking past murmuring council members. Hiruzen gestured toward her clan seat. Naruko adjusted it slightly with her Makuten so she could sit comfortably. She gave him a thumbs up. We are here to discuss promotions for Jinan who went above and beyond, Hiruzen began. The names are Shikamaru Nara, Shino Aburame, and Naruko Uzumaki. Before he could continue, a councilwoman with pink hair protested loudly, demanding promotion for her own child and another student. The room groaned at her shrill voice, but Naruko calmly raised her hand. With a flick, she applied a small volume control seal to muffle the yelling. Peace returned instantly. Hiruzen continued, explaining why Shikamaru and Shino deserved promotion. Then he looked at Naruko. The council hesitated. Some whispered doubts about her chaotic personality and past pranks. Naruko sighed quietly. Her record may have seemed troublesome, but she knew her actions had saved lives and protected the village. Hiruzen glanced at the ceiling, then nodded to a figure descending into the room, an Anbu tiger. Should Naruko Uzumaki gain promotion? Asked Hiruzen. Yes, Tiger said firmly. She displayed courage, skill, and cleverness beyond her years. She even assisted in battles against highly skilled opponents while protecting others. Gasps echoed through the room. Anbu? Promotion? The council members were stunned. Hiruzen's Anbu commander, Dragon, nodded in agreement. I recommend she joins the Anbu. Her skills are remarkable. Even the Hyuga clan head protested, but Hiruzen ignored him, smiling at Naruko. From now on, I promote Naruko Uzumaki with. The room fell silent in anticipation, all eyes on the determined, smiling girl ready to step into her next adventure. Special Anbu, said the Sandaime Hokage as he stared into his council. Have you finally lost the plot, Gigi? There's no such thing, asked Naruko, tilting her head as she watched her Gigi's eye twitch nervously. The Sandaime watched as some members of the council whispered behind their hands. The sad part was that they were shinobi, people who should have been setting a better example. Sighing, the Hokage spoke carefully. I just thought of the idea, Naruko, so no, I am not losing the plot as you suggest. The Special Anbu is a rank that combines the benefits of regular shinobi with certain Anbu privileges. You'll have higher access to missions, better pay, entry to the shinobi library, and the ability to train in Anbu facilities. Your duties will be split between regular shinobi work and part-time Anbu work. Understand? Naruko's face went through a carousel of emotions: shock, joy, excitement, realization, a hint of sadness, then acceptance, and finally, confusion again. "There's a shinobi library?" she asked, while the clan heads mentally nodded to themselves, wondering if she was really ready for this. Hiruzen nodded with a gentle grin. The shinobi library wasn't very popular, it mostly served jonin who were researching a tough mission or chunin curious about the old exams. Naruko's eyes sparkled with determination. "I accept. And I swear, as Naruko Uzumaki, as a ninja of Konoha, I will protect it and see to it that nothing happens under my watch," she said, placing a fist over her heart. Hiruzen nodded and closed the meeting. Naruko's apartment. "Ah. So bored now. Maybe a game of shogi. Nah, when I play against a clone it always ends in a draw because they're the same as me. Maybe some more fuinjutsu practice." "Yeah, that sounds fun," thought Naruko as she opened her fridge and grabbed a sack of mixed berries she had collected in the forest. Chewing thoughtfully, she walked to her living room and opened the lowest drawer in her small table, pulling out a scroll labeled Fuinjutsu Studies, Advanced Volumes 1 to 10. The scroll taught her how to plan and create her own seals. Though some might call Naruko a Fuinjutsu master for defeating Gaara and breaking through a flame barrier, she was still only a beginner, having just finished the first volume and practiced her chakra density jutsu to place seals wherever she wanted. Naruko sent chakra into the scroll, and the first volume appeared in her hands. She created 5 Kajibunshin. "Sir," they said in unison, holding their books with perfect salutes. Naruko rolled her eyes, a small sweat drop forming. Sometimes her clones were far too much like her, how did anyone put up with her? "Alright, you all read volume 1 while I train. I might even visit the library. Memorize the book, and then dispel yourselves. I can only handle 5 clones at once, but I'll finish the rest of the volumes in a week or 2. Get cracking." She opened her front door just enough to step through. Outside, she spotted a small box next to a map. Opening the box, her eyes widened. Inside lay her fox mask, white with red markings and a black nose, along with her Anbu uniform and chunin jacket. Slipping on her jacket, she grabbed the map and leapt to the roof across the street. Looking down, she saw that it led to an abandoned sector of the village, untouched since the Kyuubi's attack. Reading the map carefully, she noticed a few words at the bottom. "Don't get caught, Anbu," that must be it. The letter was probably directions to Anbu HQ, but maybe they had changed it into a recruitment test. Naruko peered toward the abandoned sector of the village and grinned. "Well, Anbu, game on," she whispered, before bounding toward the empty streets with nimble steps. Council room. What?" shouted Kakashi, his eyes wide as he stared at the Hokage and the council. He had just realized that he'd missed an invasion and that Naruko would no longer be part of Team 7 due to a special promotion. Kakashi was stunned. He had assumed the Chunin exams would last at least 3 hours, but Naruko had already bested Neji in record time, and the other participants had quickly surrendered. But what about Sasuke? You know he would have won his match," Kakashi stammered, hoping to steer Sasuke into Chunin status. He thought Naruko's promotion was just something to keep her happy. Hiruzen gazed at Kakashi with gentle disappointment. Here he was, focusing on Sasuke and ignoring Naruko, his other talented student. "Kakashi, step outside. End of discussion. Sasuke Uchiha will not be promoted. This council meeting is dismissed." Secret training area. Flash step. Gold sparks flickered across the clearing as Naruko tested her new technique. She landed in the center, breathing heavily. Huff, 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 making chakra into a physical form is exhausting. The actual travel isn't so bad, maybe I could make a seal that condenses air molecules, so I don't have to summon chakra under my feet every time. She muttered, running through calculations in her mind. Lying on the grass, she pulled out the Anbu HQ map from her Chunin vest. It was simple, reach the objective without being caught. She frowned at the small print, 5 days to complete it. How had she missed that detail? Naruko set the scroll beside her and gazed at the clear blue sky. She let her chakra flow, reaching out to every leaf, every bird, every ripple of the nearby river. Then she sensed something else. Pure, gentle, alive, an energy that seemed woven from nature itself. She drew it closer, letting it fill her. Peace washed over her, and for a moment, she felt as if the entire world could share it. A small fox leapt onto her stomach, yipping. She laughed, scratching behind its ears, before it scampered off into the trees. If peace feels like this, Naruko thought, standing and rolling up her sleeves, then everyone should get to feel it. She picked up her scroll and stepped toward the abandoned section of Konoha. Abandoned sector of Konoha. An hour later, Naruko crouched at the edge of the empty streets. She closed her eyes and sensed faint chakra signatures ahead. Taking a deep breath, she vanished in a flash, leaving the hidden Anbu blinking in surprise. Landing on a small building, she pressed her hand to a stone wall, sending subtle pulses of chakra through it. 2 Anbu shuffled nearby, unaware of her presence. Naruko grinned. Fighting them directly would be foolish, so she activated her new technique, phase. By vibrating her chakra at incredible speed, she could pass through solid objects. Her body shimmered, her form a blur of kinetic energy. She phased through the wall effortlessly. Once on the other side, she moved behind the Anbu, touching specific pressure points to safely immobilize them. They would awaken unharmed in a few minutes. Naruko felt her heartbeat slow as her chakra settled. Vibrating that fast was risky, her heart and organs could have failed, but her training and the strength of the fox's chakra within her kept her safe. She exhaled and pressed another pulse of chakra into the abandoned sector, mapping it with careful precision. Ping! Naruko smiled, ready for the next step of her adventure. Every challenge, every risk, was a chance to grow, and she was determined to do it with courage, cleverness, and a heart full of hope. Naruko felt a strange, tingling energy coming from a hidden chamber just beneath the house where she lived. She paused for a moment, her heart racing with curiosity, and then took a deep breath. Concentrating carefully, she let her energy hum and shimmer inside her, feeling it ripple through every part of her body. Her power was strong, and it made her feel a little dizzy, but she grinned. She had always loved discovering new places and solving little mysteries. With a gentle step, she pressed her feet against the floor beneath her, and, almost like magic, the ground seemed to part for her. Slowly, she drifted downward, moving through the layers of earth as if they were soft clouds, until she finally landed on a shiny, metallic platform far below. Naruko closed her eyes and reached out with her senses. Just ahead, she felt a single presence, quiet and steady, like a candle glowing in the dark. She opened her eyes and gasped. In front of her hovered a shimmering yellow mist, glowing softly and swirling in gentle patterns. Before she could react, Naruko tripped over a small ridge and tumbled onto the metal floor with a thump. She lay there for a moment, taking in the strange, magical scene around her. A tall figure stepped forward. It was Dragon, the calm and wise leader of the Anbu. Dragon's eyes were gentle but focused as he studied Naruko lying on the floor. He clicked his fingers, and 2 other Anbu appeared in a blink, Nico and Tiger, who stood straight and saluted politely. "Sir," they said in unison, their voices soft but respectful. Dragon's gaze shifted to them for a moment, then back to Naruko. "How did she do?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. Nico stepped forward with a small smile. "She did very well, for someone new. She only set off 2 of the many silent alarms, and she only disturbed the 2 Anbu who were asleep. Overall, she handled it almost perfectly," she explained, glancing down at Naruko, who was slowly sitting up and brushing herself off. Dragon nodded thoughtfully and turned to walk toward his office. "Bring her to her next challenge," he instructed quietly. Nico and Tiger nodded to each other, and together they lifted Naruko gently. In a shimmer of light, the 3 of them disappeared from the platform and reappeared at the entrance to her next test, ready for another adventure. Naruko's eyes sparkled with excitement. Each new challenge felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved, and she couldn't wait to see what surprises awaited her next. Dear YouTube family, this is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your support and for being part of this journey. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.